Okay. Yeah. Anyone have anything they'd like to share this morning or comment on or ask any questions?
I had a couple things I wanted to share. In the splits, I was feeling the conception vessel this morning, and it felt like the energy going up, and I realized, oh, my energy had been too localized in my hips, and that had actually been making them tighter. And it felt like somehow just feeling the conception vessel going up, I actually was able to go deeper into the splits. And then when we were doing the backward bend, feeling the conception vessel lengthening, and then the forward bend, feeling the governing lengthening, it just felt like it just was a whole other experience of those exercises. And I could actually feel them like sort of the conception vessel kind of making a torus, not the linking part to the governing, but like in front of me, and then the governing behind. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was feeling at one point, just looking at your body doing the thing and feeling my I was like, oh, my diaphragm is caught up, and just feeling what your diaphragm was doing. And it felt like just instinctually it started to feel different. It was like your diaphragm was talking to my diaphragm, and then I was like, oh, okay, like let's have my ribs talk to your ribs. And it's just things sort of, I felt like I kind of keyed in instinctually in a way that I haven't before. It felt much more complete. And I realized, oh, I've been trying to do this through my brain. And it felt like today it kind of bypassed the brain, and it just was able to follow more directly instinctually. And I just felt like there's so much more information available when the brain doesn't get in the way. So thank you. It was a really rich experience this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's actually kind of like, I can only imagine as like people are listening in, it's like, what does that mean? Like, not using the brain, or because like you actually have to use the brain, right? Because it's all the brain. And I think probably a better way to say that is that not trying to use your mind, but instead actually using your awareness or your sensations. And instead of trying to direct the movement with your mind, feeling your body, and then seeing how your body actually wants to move. And I think probably the best analogy I can use is if you actually try and mentally, consciously direct on how to walk, even something you know how to do, all of a sudden becomes unnatural. Like even something as simple as walking becomes impossible to do. Um, Whereas actually, if you stop thinking about it and then you just feel your body and you just let yourself do it, then it comes. And that's the difference between awareness and using the mind. And the reason we actually get caught up and we're not able to do things is because we try and control using the mind. But using the mind to control and using the awareness, in some ways, is such a subtle difference if we think about it, because you both perceive them through the mind. Awareness comes through the mind, and using the mind to try and direct everything is also done through the mind. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. It's like, oh, so what does it even mean? I mean, like, because they're both perceived in the mind, whether we're trying to direct with our mind or whether we're just aware, it all registers in the mind. But the difference is where is the movement coming from? Is the movement coming from, where you're using your mind to direct, like, okay, pick up the step now, now put the foot down. I mean, like, you'll notice that the moment you start doing that, it's crazy. Whereas if you just see what you're doing, it's kind of an interesting thing. If you just allow yourself to bring awareness to what's actually already going on, then oftentimes it just corrects itself as we notice, which is a very interesting thing. We just notice, oh, that didn't feel good. And then it starts correcting by itself without us having to control anything. And that subtle distinction is actually the distinction that we're trying to learn. Which part of it is directing? And not being able to make that subtle distinction is also, what drives us crazy, because the mind can control up to a few things. But something as simple as walking, if you try and control that, it's like we can't, like, it just becomes a horrible walk. It's not that you can't do it, it just becomes a horrible walk. And so what we realize is that if we use a mind, the number of things that we can effectively control, it's not that we can control, it's that the things that we can do effectively goes way down. And there is a time to try and control things. If you're limited and you're learning something new and you're just trying to get a feel for it, that actually can work. It can bring more awareness. But if we try and use the mind to control the whole thing, that's when we run into problems, because it's just way too complex. It's like learning sports. Once you learn how to do something, you gotta let go and you gotta just let the body take care of it. And the way you do that is you just bring awareness. And if you have awareness, the whole activity becomes better and you learn better. And so I wanted to say, like, it's really great experience and thank you for sharing that. And then I just want to kind of just expound on the experience of the difference between what happens between the mind, where is it, controlling, what's the difference between controlling and awareness? Because it's such a subtle difference. It's really not much of a difference at all. And why it is because they're both perceived through the mind. And so hopefully actually just this distinction will help actually just gain even more freedom as you're practicing.
Thank you. Yes, that's really helpful. What's coming to me as you're saying that is it's like the distinction is helping me see that I think when I've thought about letting go of control in the past, there was, there's been fear and it's felt like, oh, that's a scary thing to do, but felt like the sort of the positive association of the experience of awareness and following and the kind of the curiosity and exploration and what am I going to find out next, and just the it's not just letting go of control, but it's actually kind of replacing that with something that is pleasurable, that like awareness is actually I'm feeling in my system, it's like, oh right, this can be very very pleasurable, and instead of the tension of the mind feeling like it needs to make something happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I want to just add this, like you said, it's a scary thing. When I think probably one thing that would also help is to see the illusion of control. So the reason the mind wants to control is for security, right? It feels like it's afraid that it's not going to get a certain result, and it's afraid that if you don't get the certain result, that you're either going to be in a lot of pain, or that you're not going to get your needs met. Like you're not going to get the kind of pleasure that you're hoping for. And so the mind is looking for a way to guarantee things. It's looking for basically safety and security. How am I going to be able to have my needs met, on an ongoing basis? It's kind of like, the same thing, like, I want to say like money or home, or like, how can I guarantee, that I'm going to be out of the rain? Oh, if I come out with a roof, it's like, I'm not going to have to worry about rain anymore. It's kind of like this. That's sort of the mind's job, looking for security and safety and consistency. How can I make things more predictable so that I can have a better life? So I would say that the mind's job, it's a good job, actually. We should be grateful for the mind. The issue is when we're trying to control things that are out of our control. And the mind can't let go of control until it sees that the way it's trying to control it actually makes it less effective, and it makes it less, it decreases the chances of survival. That's kind of the key. And so and you're just bringing clarity around it, and then seeing what allows for survival to go up. So when our mind starts to try and control our body, it's because, like for athletic things, it tried to do something, it didn't work very well, and then some corrections didn't happen until you started paying attention, and then it confuses paying attention, which is bringing actually awareness, and then actually having some focal points. And so having a clear target actually for the mind is really helpful to moving the body. So let's say, for instance, if you're throwing a javelin, it's actually good to have a clear target. If you, whatever it is you're doing, it's the body moves around the target instinctively. So having a target actually is helpful. But then having a target can actually seem like, and sometimes you can have a target for the movement, and that can seem like a good idea to control the body. Like say, for instance, we have targets like, okay, breathe to the area right in front of your lumbar. That's a target. And then you see how the body responds. But then at some point, the mind is looking for a better way to perform. And then the control, or it narrows the target more and more to actually the movement itself. That's when the issue starts happening. So it's actually a confusion of the mind to try and guarantee performance so that it can guarantee consistency and results so that you can have a better life. And so you become more and more controlling without actually realizing that you're starting to control things that are very ineffective for the mind to control, because it was really never designed for that. And so for walking, way too complex of a process. But let's say, for instance, if you look into the horizon, you walk really good. If you don't think about walking, your body takes care of the rest. And so being able to give your mind an effective target for the rest of the body to move, so that your mind is off your body and your body can do whatever it needs to do. That's kind of like a good thing to do. And so, so the mind Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to say that, basically about the fear and the letting go of control. And, that's a natural process. And what you'll notice is that the way you can have the mind let go of the control is by having it recognized, like the walking. Oh, when I try to control it, it makes it worse every single time. Oh, it's actually impossible. And then once you see it's impossible, and then once it sees what is more effective, the mind switches over. Because the mind is all about effectiveness. The mind is not unreasonable. It's a learning tool. It's the reason we are here. And so the idea isn't to get rid of the mind. The idea is to liberate the mind by allowing it to be more effective, letting it do its job. The issue is that out of fear, we have overburdened the mind. We've made it responsible for things that we should have never made it responsible for. So hopefully that gives you some better things to explore with in the role of the instinct and the mind.
Thank you so much. I feel like you were talking straight to my source code just now. I was feeling how a lot of my patterning around learning movement came from ballet, and just feeling as you're talking, it actually felt like a really unsafe environment, and feeling how much my mind got engaged and my eyes got engaged, and there was sort of a frozenness in there, like needing to perform and not having it be safe to let the mind go or to explore, and feeling how that became a template for learning movement and really for learning new things. It feels like it was just sort of an instinctual template of like, I need to get this and needing to put in extra effort, but feeling how it actually wasn't effective because of the frozenness, and the unnaturalness that came in. So yes, thank you. That was, I can feel what you're talking about. It's really helpful context, and I feel like my something is rewiring in the process.
Good.
So thank you very much, Mr. Kim.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. One thing I will say is that using the mind to learn, never provides naturalness, but it actually allows you to get things that are more measurable. For instance, you're able to do things that you weren't able to do before. So it feels like a more effective learning thing because you have a concrete difference. Whereas, being able to be more natural, that's actually a much more kind of a vague thing. It's kind of like a quality thing. It's kind of like the lighting, when the lighting when you're taking pictures or filming things, it's kind of like, it's really important, but it's kind of like, if the lighting is good, then automatically, everything looks better, but you don't know why, because it's subtle, so it's like movement is the same thing. So like, if you're free, then the quality of the movement automatically goes up. But let's say, for instance, you're learning a new technique, which is a new behavior. Freedom and naturalness is not necessarily going to help you get that new movement. And so when you're first getting a new movement, it might be important to use a mind to get step 1, step 2, step 3, just to kind of get the feel for it, and then kind of explore then. But then if a person never learned, it's kind of like music, you still need to learn the scales, And to learn the
Mm-hmm.
skills, actually having a mind is very useful. Here's step one, here's step two. And you can also just learn by trial and error, which is just as well and powerful. But and so I wanted to say that probably what actually happened there is if a person is looking for something that's concrete and measurable, then the mind is, it gives you results. It's like, oh, I couldn't do this before, now I can do this. But then when it comes to quality, relaxation, and enjoyment, and things like that, that completely goes in the realm of letting go, right? And so creating something that's different is in the realm of the mind, something that's measurable, having a clear target. Okay, here's step number one, here's step number two. Very different thing from, ooh, how does that feel? Right, so it's a difference between quantity versus quality. And so letting go results in quality, whereas the mind, awareness results in quality, whereas the mind results in performance. And it's just knowing which one, you want to do. And if you're in an area of performance and you try and use quality, that's just as frustrating, actually. So that's one of the reasons why it's not this or that. You can't make the mind back. That's why I was saying, it's a wonderful thing for predictability and, consistency. Like, it comes up with systems. But then once you learn it and it comes to maintenance, that's not so good. Now, if you get really good, then you can maintain the quality of naturalness while you're actually still learning. Because and that's what's called relaxed focus, because now you're learning from a relaxed place. And that's what we're hoping for, actually. At least in my opinion, because I think that's the best experience.
Mm-hmm.
So at least in
Thank
my
you for that
experience.
nuance.
Oh, welcome. So I mean, it's why the Taoists spend so much time. I believe that Taoists were basically people who had a very low tolerance for bad experiences, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so basically they were like, oh, if we do this, you have a much better experience. And I was like, and so in order to kind of stabilize and guarantee a good experience, they needed to really dig. I mean, like really dig, because they need to, because it's like anything. If you use the wrong tool for the wrong task, you're gonna get undesired results, right? And so if you use the mind for quality, it's not gonna deliver it. You need to use awareness. And if you try and use that for learning or performance where there are measurements involved, that's not so good. But then when you're in performance mode, there's so much tension that doesn't feel good either. And so if you learn how to actually be relaxed and have a high quality mind while you're learning, well, I think, and so that's how they reached it, because they experienced the limitation of just one or the other. It's like, I experienced a limitation. So, okay, that's probably good enough discourse for today on this subject.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Just feeling the I don't know, the depth of the exploration, like of these forebears, and also of you, and feeling how it's like that's really helping make this I guess giving a target, it's like that, and the nuance that you're bringing and the context, it's like I don't really have words, but just gratitude of like getting to sort of benefit from the fruits of those explorations that have, like, other humans have already been engaged in, and like finding, you know, finding these treasures and carrying them forward. So thank you.
Oh, welcome. I'm glad. Okay, so now I'm done cleaning, so I get a scooch, but you'll have a good time using your mind appropriately for the task at hand.
Thank you so much, Master Kim.
Thank
Welcome.
Thank you, Master
Kim.
Kim.
Welcome.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Welcome. Bye.